the village chief's daughter who exposed her father's secret fortune and paid the price in the heart of Ghana. Beyond the dusty roads and the broad stretches of cocoa farms, there was a village called Abokobi. The sun rose slow and steady over the low hills, turning the red earth into a soft glow. Children ran barefoot across the clay paths, their laughter mixing with the distant crowing of roosters. The women carried clay pots balanced on their heads, moving with quiet grace toward the river, where water ran clear in gentle streams. Smoke rose from the small kitchens where mothers stirred thick porridge over open fires. The village breathed in simple rhythms, life measured by the sun and the rain. At the center of Abokobi stood a compound of larger clay walls, smoother than the others, topped with woven straw roofs. This was the home of the chief, Nana Kofi, a man whose voice carried authority without shouting. People came to him for guidance. They sought his wisdom when disputes arose and left offerings during the harvest festivals. The village trusted him, for they believed he carried their welfare in his heart. Yet, behind his calm, weathered face, lay secrets unknown to the villagers. Amma, the chief's daughter, moved quietly through the narrow corridors of the compound. She had grown among the simple rhythms of Abokobi, but always noticed things differently. She watched her father count coins behind closed doors and saw the ledger book stacked high in the inner chamber. The villagers spoke freely in her presence, never suspecting that her sharp eyes caught every glance, every hushed whisper. Amma had learned to carry patience like a shield and curiosity like a blade. She understood the ways of the village and the expectations that rested on her family name. Yet, the unease in her chest grew with each passing moon. One morning, as the mist lifted from the cocoa farms, Amma followed the soft sound of the river to a small clearing beyond the main paths. She found an old chest buried beneath a faded cloth. Its hinges were heavy with dust. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened it. Inside, coins gleamed like captured sunlight, and small jewels reflected the sky above. It was more wealth than any family in Abokobi could imagine. She counted in silence, her heart growing heavier with understanding. Her father had kept this treasure hidden while the villagers struggled to plant, harvest, and feed their families. The injustice felt sharp and immediate. Let us move forward in the day. Amma walked through the village, carrying her thoughts like a heavy load. She observed the market where women sold yams and tomatoes, and children ran after one another with empty hands. The villagers spoke of debts, of hunger in the dry season, of the river drying earlier than usual. Each voice etched itself in her mind. Each story of struggle deepened the ache she carried. She knew what she had discovered was not for her alone. The village deserved the truth, and she felt a duty that could not be denied. As the sun began to tilt westward, casting long shadows over the red clay walls, Amma approached the gathering place where elders met beneath the ancient baobab tree. She held her head high and spoke clearly, though her voice trembled with the weight of the moment. She told them of the chest, of the wealth, and of her hope that it could be used to ease the hardships of the village. The elders listened, shifting uneasily in their seats. Some frowned, some exchanged secret glances, and a silence fell like a heavy cloth over the gathering. It was not how matters were expected to unfold. Secrets, once hidden, rarely surfaced without consequence. Now we step into the next moment. When the news reached Nana Kofi, the chief's face was unreadable. His eyes narrowed, and his mouth pressed into a thin line. He summoned Amma to his inner chamber. The walls of the room were lined with carved masks and faded tapestries, artifacts that spoke of generations past. Amma felt the weight of the air, thick with the unspoken words of those who came before. Her father spoke softly, almost kindly at first, warning her of the danger in disrupting the balance of tradition. He spoke of respect and the burdens of leadership. Yet beneath the gentle tone, Amma sensed the sharp edge of betrayal. The man she had admired, whose guidance had shaped her understanding of honor, now stood as a barrier to the truth she believed must be shared. Evening fell slowly over Abokobi. The market emptied, and smoke from cooking fires curled into the purple sky. Children returned to the compounds, where mothers hummed lullabies. Amma sat beneath the baobab tree, reflecting on the choices that had brought her to this moment. She remembered the laughter of villagers as they traded goods, the soft steps of elders moving between huts, the quiet songs of birds preparing for night. The life of the village was gentle yet fragile, and now her actions had placed her in the center of a storm that had been hidden for years. The days that followed were quiet in appearance, but restless beneath the surface. Whispers traveled across the paths and through the huts. Amma could feel the eyes of the villagers on her, some full of hope, some full of fear. Even as the moon rose and silvered the clay rooftops, she could hear the soft murmur of doubt, the cautious words that measured loyalty against the weight of truth. She walked among the women at the river, watched the children play, and sensed the subtle changes. The village had shifted imperceptibly. Power, once unquestioned, now faced scrutiny. And in that quiet moment, Amma understood that her life, her family, and the village itself were caught in a delicate balance of justice and consequence. The next morning, the sun rose with a soft glow over Abokobi. Mist lingered in the cocoa farms, and the sound of chickens crowing echoed across the clay paths. Amma moved through the village with quiet determination. She visited the small stalls where women sold yams, cassava, and palm oil. She spoke gently to them, sharing ideas of how the hidden wealth could help the children attend school, how it could improve the river's irrigation, and how the elders could plan for the dry season. Some villagers listened with cautious hope while others cast quick, suspicious glances. Rumors of change traveled faster than the wind through the compound. Nana Kofi watched silently from the veranda of his home. His eyes followed Amma as she passed, calm yet heavy with unease. He knew the power of his position and the loyalty of the village depended on unquestioned obedience. The elders, once his closest allies, began to murmur among themselves, unsure how to respond. Some felt Amma's courage was necessary, a long overdue call to fairness. Others worried about the repercussions of exposing a secret that had been buried for years. Amma found solace in small, quiet moments. She walked by the river at dawn, watching the water flow over smooth stones. Fishermen drew nets from the shallow pools, singing softly as they worked. She greeted them with a nod, learning of their struggles to feed their families when the rains had been late. Each story reminded her why she had taken the risk to speak the truth. Each story reinforced the feeling that her actions were necessary, even if the cost was yet unknown. As the sun rose higher, Amma returned to the chief's compound. Nana Kofi's voice was measured when he called her inside. He spoke of loyalty, tradition, and the unspoken rules of the village. He warned her that her actions could bring shame upon the family and unrest among the villagers. His words were calm yet carried the weight of a man who had seen generations follow the same path. Amma listened, her heart heavy, yet her resolve remained unbroken. She spoke of fairness, of the suffering she had witnessed, and of the need for justice that could strengthen the village rather than divide it. The elders gathered once more beneath the baobab tree. Their faces were lined with years of wisdom and worry. Some argued quietly in favor of Amma, citing the need for transparency and community support. Others spoke of the dangers of upsetting the balance, of challenging the authority of the chief, and of the consequences of revealing hidden truths. Words floated gently through the warm afternoon air, and the village seemed to hold its breath. Children played at the edge of the circle, their laughter a soft counterpoint to the serious discussion. The balance of tradition and change rested on the outcome of these quiet deliberations. Amma found herself alone in the compound one evening, the firelight flickering across the walls. She thought of the chest and the coins that had shone like captured sunlight. She thought of the village women, their hands rough from labor, and the children whose laughter she had heard at the river. Her heart ached with the weight of responsibility. She understood that truth had a price, yet she could not abandon what she knew was right. The following days brought a subtle shift. Some villagers approached Amma in hushed tones, offering support and quiet encouragement. Others avoided her, unsure where their loyalty should lie. Rumors grew like vines through the narrow paths, twisting around the corners of huts and climbing into the compound. Nana Kofi's demeanor remained calm, yet the tension in his gaze could not be hidden. He consulted with the elders in private, speaking softly yet firmly, reminding them of their shared responsibility to maintain order. Amma, however, moved steadily forward. She organized small meetings with women by the river, discussing practical ways the hidden wealth could be used for communal benefit. She spoke of water wells, seeds for planting, and care for the elderly. Her words were calm, measured, and persuasive. Slowly, a few villagers began to see the potential of change. Their hope grew like small shoots pushing through the red earth. Yet beneath the surface, doubt and fear lingered, for the chief's authority was not lightly questioned. And the elders carried the weight of tradition on their shoulders. One evening, as the sun sank behind the distant hills, Amma sat beneath the baobab tree. The village was quiet except for the soft murmur of the river and the faint calls of night birds. She reflected on the days that had passed, the choices made, and the subtle tension that now filled the air. She realized that exposing the hidden fortune had not brought immediate chaos, yet it had stirred the currents beneath the calm surface of Abokobi. Families whispered, neighbors watched each other with new awareness, and the elders moved with caution in their steps. Change was coming, slow and deliberate, and she understood that patience and perseverance would be her greatest allies. Then one morning, as the rooster crowed across the village, Amma discovered that the chest had been moved. It was no longer in its hidden place, and a subtle fear crept through her. The weight of consequence was now tangible. She knew that the chief had acted, and the elders were involved. She felt the eyes of the village on her as she walked past the compounds. Whispers followed her through the dusty paths. Children stopped to stare. Women spoke in low voices behind closed doors. The balance of hope and fear had shifted, and Amma felt the first sharp edge of isolation. Nana Kofi spoke to her again that day. His voice was calm and deliberate, almost gentle, yet the underlying warning was clear. He reminded her of the importance of unity and the dangers of stirring unrest. He spoke of family honor and the expectations of the villagers. Amma listened, her mind steady despite the growing tension. She understood that exposing the truth had not only revealed her father's secret but had also challenged the structure of the village itself. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily upon her, yet her resolve remained. The days that followed were quiet in the open air, yet tense beneath the surface. Amma moved through Abokobi with careful steps. The villagers greeted her politely but kept their distance. Children waved from the corners of the clay paths, while their parents whispered quietly in the shadows of huts. The market was alive with the usual sounds of trading, but beneath the clatter of baskets and the calls of vendors, there was an undercurrent of cautious observation. Everyone was aware that something had shifted. Amma continued her visits to the river, where the women washed clothes and fetched water. She spoke softly of seeds for planting, of tools for farming, and of ways to ease the burden of the elders. Some listened with hope, while others hesitated. The weight of tradition pressed upon them as firmly as the sun that beat down on the red clay paths. Change was unfamiliar and unsettling, even when it promised relief. Amma's words were patient, her tone steady, for she understood that fear moved slowly in the hearts of people accustomed to silence. Inside the chief's compound, Nana Kofi convened the elders. The room smelled of dried leaves and carved wood. They spoke in low tones, measuring every word. The hidden wealth had been revealed, and the balance of authority was threatened. Some elders advised patience and counsel, others suggested punishment and warning. The chief's voice was calm, deliberate, and weighted with the authority that had guided the village for decades. He reminded them of their shared duty to maintain the village's respect for its leaders. In the quiet of the compound, plans were made without haste but with intent. Amma sensed the growing tension as she walked through the village in the afternoons. Women eyed her cautiously, while men who had once nodded in greeting now avoided her path. She saw the change in the elders' expressions as they moved among the villagers, silent messages passing in glances. The chest, her proof of the hidden fortune, remained unseen. The village knew it existed, yet no one spoke openly about it. Fear and loyalty were tangled together in ways that even Amma could not easily untangle. One evening, as the sun dipped low over the cocoa farms and the river shimmered in the soft light, Amma gathered a small group of women beneath the baobab tree. She spoke of the possibilities hidden within the secret treasure. She spoke of wells that could provide water during dry seasons and tools to make farming easier. The women listened with quiet interest and nodded at her suggestions. Hope flickered like a small flame among them, yet the unspoken fear of reprisal lingered like a shadow. The village held its breath, waiting for the next movement of the tide that Amma had begun. Nana Kofi observed these quiet gatherings from the compound. He did not confront her openly at first. Instead, he consulted with the elders in private. Their conversations were measured, their voices low. Some elders sympathized with Amma's intentions but feared the erosion of authority. Others pressed for stronger measures, reminding the chief that the village's trust in his leadership was fragile. The weight of centuries of tradition rested on their shoulders, and they could not afford to let it slip easily. Amma continued her quiet work among the villagers, teaching, listening, and offering guidance. She understood the delicate balance between hope and fear, and she moved with patience. Yet she could feel the currents shifting beneath the calm surface. Whispers followed her footsteps. Eyes watched from the windows of huts. The village was learning to see differently, and the elders and chief felt the tremor of unease ripple through their careful control. One afternoon, Amma visited a widow named Abina who lived on the far side of the village. Abina's home was small, with walls of sun-baked clay and a roof woven from straw. Her hands were worn from years of labor in the fields. She listened quietly as Amma spoke of the village's needs and of ways the hidden wealth could bring relief. Abina nodded slowly, hope lighting her face for a moment before a shadow of fear crossed her eyes. She knew what it meant to challenge the chief, even with good intentions. As evening settled over Abokobi, Amma returned to the compound. The sun's orange glow touched the clay roofs and painted the paths in long shadows. The chief was waiting. His voice was calm but firm, a quiet command carried in the weight of generations. He spoke of respect, of loyalty, and of the dangers of undermining authority. Amma responded with measured words, explaining her belief that fairness and honesty could strengthen the village rather than weaken it. Yet in his eyes, she saw the first glimmer of true anger. Beneath the practiced calm, the tension of the village grew. As days passed, villagers moved carefully, watching each other and Amma. Elders whispered advice and warnings to one another. Children sensed the subtle change and asked questions they were too young to understand. Women exchanged glances filled with unspoken concern. Amma felt the heavy gaze of the village on her back as she walked among them, each step a reminder of the fragile line she was treading. One night, under a full moon, Amma heard the distant sound of drums from the compound. The rhythm was steady and measured. She knew it was the elders calling a meeting. The village held its breath as the drums echoed across the cocoa farms and through the narrow paths. The time for quiet observation was over. Decisions were coming that would touch every home and test the courage of those who had dared to see the truth. The following morning, the village awoke to a quiet that felt heavier than usual. The children hesitated in the clay paths, their games slower, eyes darting toward the compound where the chief and the elders had gathered. Amma moved carefully through the market, noticing the lowered voices and stiffened postures of those she passed. Even the women by the river carried a cautious weight in their steps. The rhythm of daily life continued, outwardly unchanged, yet beneath the surface, the village held a tension that was nearly tangible. Amma knew she had crossed a line. The chest, the hidden wealth, and the knowledge of it had disrupted the balance that had long defined Abokobi. She understood that her actions were not just about fairness, but about courage, about showing the villagers that secrets held by those in power were not beyond scrutiny. Yet she also felt the first real sting of isolation. Whispers followed her from hut to hut. Families averted her gaze. Even some of the women who had once sought her guidance now spoke softly and quickly when she approached. Inside the compound, Nana Kofi's demeanor remained calm to outsiders. To the elders, he spoke with quiet intensity. His voice carried the authority of generations. He reminded them of the importance of unity, of tradition, and of the dangers of giving power to youthful ideals without restraint. The elders listened, some nodding, some frowning. Decisions were not made lightly in Abokobi. The weight of authority rested as heavily on the oldest as it did on the youngest, and no one dared act without deliberation. Amma's determination did not waver. She continued her quiet work among the villagers, moving from household to household, speaking of wells, tools, and seeds. Slowly, she noticed small changes. A widow planted the seeds she had been given, a boy carried a new clay pot to his mother, and a woman traded yams with renewed confidence. The villagers began to see her vision in small increments. Yet each success was accompanied by a subtle tension, a reminder that the authority of the chief and elders still held sway. One afternoon, Amma was called to the compound. The air was still, the sun casting long shadows across the clay paths. Nana Kofi met her at the threshold of the inner courtyard. His voice was calm yet firm. He spoke of loyalty, of family, honor, and of the importance of obedience. He reminded her of the dangers of stirring unrest and the consequences of challenging the structure of the village. Amma listened with quiet patience, speaking only when necessary. She explained her belief that fairness and transparency could strengthen the village rather than weaken it. The chief's gaze was steady, measuring her resolve. Later that evening, as the sun sank behind distant hills and the river reflected the fading light, Amma walked alone through the village. The children played quietly, their laughter muted. The women gathered at the riverbank in small groups, speaking in hushed tones. Amma felt the eyes of the village upon her, some filled with hope, others with caution. She understood the delicate balance she had set in motion. Change came slowly, and those who held power resisted it quietly but firmly. The elders convened a meeting beneath the baobab tree. They spoke of Ama's courage, of the possibilities her actions had revealed, and of the disruption to tradition that could not be ignored. Words floated gently on the evening air, measured, deliberate, and heavy with consequence. The village held its breath. Even the children, sensing the gravity of the moment, remained still and silent. Decisions were made slowly in Abokobi. Every word carried the weight of generations. Ama understood the subtle consequences of her actions. Her father's secret fortune had been revealed, and the village could no longer view him without doubt. Yet she also saw glimpses of change. Some villagers began to speak more freely of their needs and hopes. They carried themselves with a quiet confidence that had been absent before. The chest, once hidden, had shifted the rhythms of the village in ways that could not be undone. One night, under the full moon, Amma stood at the edge of the village and watched the cocoa farms glisten in the silver light. She thought of the villagers, of their struggles, and of the fragile hope she had helped plant. The weight of consequence pressed upon her, yet she felt a quiet satisfaction. The truth had been spoken, change had begun, and though the path forward was uncertain, the village of Abokobi would never be the same. In the days that followed, life moved slowly toward a new rhythm. Nana Kofi maintained his authority outwardly, yet even he had been touched by the courage of his daughter. The elders, once rigid, found subtle ways to accommodate the small improvements Amma had inspired. Villagers worked the fields with renewed determination. Women shared their knowledge openly, and children laughed with the freedom that comes from small victories. The chest, though no longer hidden, had become a symbol not of wealth, but of responsibility and courage. Amma's life had changed irrevocably. She had paid a price for exposing the truth. Some neighbors still avoided her, and whispers followed her steps. Yet she carried a quiet pride in the work she had done and the possibilities she had set in motion. The village of Abokobi had learned that even the oldest structures could bend under the weight of truth. The river continued to flow, the cocoa farms yielded their fruit, and the clay paths bore the footprints of villagers who now walked with the quiet awareness that courage could alter the course of life itself. As the sun set over Abokobi, casting the village in long, warm shadows, Amma sat beneath the baobab tree and watched the river shimmer in the fading light. She knew that change would continue slowly, that the currents of tradition were strong, and that the balance of the village would always require care. Yet she also knew that the truth, once spoken, had the power to transform lives. And in the quiet, gentle rhythm of the village, she could feel the first steady pulse of a new beginning. The village had witnessed the courage of a daughter, the fragility of power, and the weight of consequence. Life would continue its calm rhythm, yet nothing would ever be entirely the same. In the quiet Ghanaian village of Abokobi, Amma, the chief's daughter, uncovers a hidden fortune her father has kept from the people for years. Driven by a desire to help, she exposes the secret, hoping to bring relief to struggling villagers. But her courage comes at a cost. Family loyalty, tradition, and power collide as the chief and elders turn against her. Whispers, fear, and isolation follow her steps, yet small acts of hope begin to ripple through the community. This is a story of truth, courage, and the quiet price of challenging authority in a world where even love and family can be tested.